This is a very important discussion that I want to have with you all about how you show up. And the title that we gave to it about not faking it till you make it. Let's get rid of that idea of fake it till you make it, because it doesn't serve anyone very well at all. In fact, it holds us all back unnecessarily. I would say it's one of the most toxic, limiting beliefs that we can sit with, that we can tell ourselves, that we can hold on to, because it's built on the premise that our story isn't worth sharing, that it's not good enough, that we're not interesting enough on our own, and that we need to, in order to be able to show up authentically, sit with this idea of being uncomfortable in our own skin. And it's just not true. I now help C-suite leaders all over the world to get comfortable in their own skin, not by using performative media training techniques, but by just being able to be themselves, not relying on scripts, breathing techniques, posture, body language, all of those sort of things that tend to just be a way to try and control a situation. And the reality is no one can actually control a situation anymore anyway. If we're not being our authentic selves, people do see through it and just don't buy it. I don't know what it is that you think about showing up on video. A lot of people believe that their story isn't worth sharing. This is possibly the most consistent bit of feedback I get from C-suite leaders all over the world. And I like to challenge that idea, because at the heart of it is just a belief that our story isn't worth sharing. And from there, people decide to stay quiet and they just want to let other people get all the attention. In a corporate context, that can look like the leadership team outsourcing the story completely to the comms team, so that there's almost no narrative presence from the leadership team within the organisation. It's all entirely corporatised, and the messaging is quite sanitised. It's not very human. It's all about outcomes. It's all about projects, deliverables, results. And the problem with this is it doesn't really connect very well with other people. It's not the human story. And the beauty of this is that people actually want to hear your story. And your story is more valuable than you think. It is worth so much more than you think. And the reason why a lot of executives decide not to tell their story is because up until now, you've believed and been clinging to this idea that your work will speak for itself. Look at the results we achieved. Look at how much money we made. Look at the size of the project we delivered, on time, under budget. That may well be the case, and that's fantastic you've achieved those results. But you and your team have an incredible story to tell. And if you're not telling that story, you're leaving impact, money, influence on the table. Absolutely beautiful day down here in Jimbaran Bay, Bali. Thank you so much for joining us. I am just so relaxed. I'm more relaxed now than I've been in years since I started running my own business. In fact, just by way of introduction, Evan Batten is my name. I am the unretired reporter, is how I go on social media now, because, and everyone's saying hello down there, because I've spent 30 years working in mainstream media. And I started off working as a sound recordist, and that was back in the early 90s. Started off as a sound recordist, and it was a job straight out of high school, right in the deep end of a newsroom. And my responsibility there was to capture the sound, but stay out of the spotlight, be on the side, the margins of what was going on. Fast forward to the late 90s, and I decided, journalism could be a thing. I might give it a go. Because, friends, storytelling had always been in my blood. I'd loved stories. I grew up watching more TV than most, than the average kid. And so I had a fascination with video stories, with TV stories, and I was starting to see the internal workings of at least a newsroom and how they created content, how things were put together there. And then I decided I thought I could have a go at this, Why don't I just see how far I can go with it? Those people in their 20s who decide, I'll just keep going and see where this does land up. Well, before you know it, I'm enrolled in a communications degree. The people who'd given me a break as a sound recordist were prepared to give me a break as a junior reporter, kind of working weekends and doing the odd story here and there. And, oh my goodness, I was definitely out of my depth, wasn't ready for it. So they waited until I finished my university degree and still saw my enthusiasm, but how far out of my depth I was. Anyway, there's a story here to unpack, and I'll get to it shortly. But all this to say that I then spent 30 years working in mainstream media. Worked for all of the three commercial networks in Australia, Channel 10 to begin with. Then I went to 9 and then back to 7, where I'd started as a sound recordist back in the early 90s. And the perspective that I've gained by not only putting myself forward as a storyteller and going from being a green cadet out of my depth to being, actually, this is quite comfortable. I get it now. I feel a level of comfort in my own skin on camera and sharing stories. I sit comfortably with not knowing all of the answers, it's not that nothing can surprise me anymore. It's that I'm comfortable dealing with the surprise of live TV, for example, and whatever might happen. Friends, there's a reality to the clock that is ticking down on all of our lives. We all only have so much time to live. And there are only so many things that we can do in that time. There are only so many conferences we can go to, only so many projects we can be involved with. There are only so many things that we can achieve, businesses that we can start, create out of nothing and sell. There is a finite number of opportunities. Even the most high-performing entrepreneur, that's just the reality of it. And yet, you look at what you can achieve in this period of time, from today until the day that you die, while the time that you have and the opportunity you have to do a certain number of things that will achieve certain results is limited, here's where you can amplify your impact in an extraordinary way. And let's just say for the next X number of days that you have with a healthy, strong body capable of achieving great results in your field of area, interest and expertise in line with your purpose, your calling, this is how much you can do. But if you bring storytelling into the mix as you go through the rest of your life doing all of these things, you will increase not only the effectiveness and engagement and networking opportunities as you go, just by telling your story, but you will also, you'll increase the engagement with other people, but you will also build an actual legacy. In fact, more than a legacy, you'll be on your way to building a dynasty, something that will extend beyond your lifetime. Because the opportunities that you have to create strong connections is amplified. And we're not talking about only what you do on social media here. We're also talking about how you show up on private communication channels, direct comms, internal comms. And so a lot of the video content I help people to make never actually sees the light of day on social media. It might only be for a very small audience or a very internal, private audience from within the organisation. But for leaders, we all know how important it is to be showing up consistently, to be visible, accountable, accessible, approachable. And so if you just show up and tell your story, wow. And here's the thing that really excites me, friends. Everything I've been doing for 30 years as a nightly news reporter, and most of that time was spent in the crime round, is now an absolute superpower for executives. With our smartphones, it's not a surprise to anybody that these things are a TV studio in our pocket, capable of recording broadcast quality content. And so in the coaching work that I do with people in Project V, I show you how to put yourself in the story, do interviews and capture the moments, edit it all together in the most efficient way possible to create short and compelling broadcast quality news stories, short documentaries, little snippets, snackable content for social media, for internal comms, client relations, investor relations, messages for the board, all kind of internal strategic opportunities that we have to communicate well with people. That's what we can do with our smartphone. Been doing it for 30 years in mainstream media, seeing it from various perspectives. But I know that, you're already thinking, hey, I've only got limited time between now and my last day, this period X. How is it that I can suddenly bring video making into the mix here without taking away from the other projects? I'm a busy, time-poor professional. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an executive. I lead thousands of people. I don't have time to be making videos. Well, guess what? This is about the most efficient way to do it. Without a script, and where you maintain ownership of your story, you will be amazed at how much you can do in a limited period of time. Imagine not needing a script, not needing to memorize anything, but just showing up consistently to speak to people on your smartphone video and being happy with the first, really being happy with the first take and only doing a second take because I normally do 17 and still don't like them. So you're like, oh, we got it right the first time. But here we go. We've got an extra minute, so we'll do another video. Oh, let's do a quick interview with this staff member who just won, an award for their excellence this month. Oh, I asked, I was so relaxed and comfortable in the way that I did that. We didn't need to do a second take. They were great because I was great. Because I was comfortable, they were great. Imagine getting these things done the first time, not needing to do it a second or a third time. That's where we get to. With this storyteller mindset, you're leveraging the executive power of your smartphone. Most of you can still remember that phones used to be quite unsmart when they were just digital devices, that we thought it was incredible we can do email on these things now. That's amazing. Remember the Blackberries? Wasn't that an advent? I was flying around all across Australia doing crime stories by that stage, using my Blackberry, and I thought it was incredible that I could type out a script on my email. Wasn't that incredible? The access that opened up. Friends, the phones, as they've developed in more than the last 10 years, I think it is, and now the last couple of years in particular, not only Apple phones, I've got Apple phones, but all sorts of tech to create broadcast quality content is off the scale. It is incredible now. The capability that we have just with our smartphones. It's never been there before quite like this. And what this means for executives is suddenly the categories that TV journos operate in are quite interesting, because when you can capture the moments as they happen around you, and when you can put yourself in the story and do interviews with other people, that's every documentary you've ever seen. It's just made up of lots of those sorts of moments. It's every short news story each night. They're just made up of those three things. And here's the real kicker. The coaching work that I do with executives, I also show you how to edit that content together easily yourself. Because we're not putting loads of graphics in there. We're not putting music in there. This is about letting the authenticity of the moment capture and maintain interest in the story by keeping it efficient, tight, engaging. Friends, when you start to unlock the power of your story, you'll see there are all sorts of incredible narratives that in themselves are quite formulaic. And there's nothing wrong with that, because what makes them interesting is not that they follow a formula. What makes them interesting is that they are a reflection of what's happening today, right now. So I want to inspire you. If you are sitting there right now thinking, who is this guy? Evan Batten's my name, 30 years in mainstream media. I'm now the unretired reporter, C-suite executive coach, helping people to leverage the power of their smartphone and their story. You combine a storyteller mindset with your vision, your values, your purpose, and watch out world. You're going to amplify your impact. You're going to build trust at scale. And I'm standing here in the middle of Bali, Jimbaran Bay. The airport's just up there. And even on a slightly overcast morning like this, I know in the next couple of hours this stuff's going to blow off. Just beautiful, amazing weather that we're having here. And it's just such a delight to be standing here having this conversation with you all. So thank you for taking the time to dial in. But you might be sitting there thinking, as I often hear, as I work with C-suite leaders all over the world, most of whom I never meet. I do direct coaching with them over platforms like Signal or WhatsApp, watching how they perform on video and ultimately helping them to no longer perform, but to just be. And what I often hear from people in that context is, I don't like how I look and sound on video. And when we can start a conversation in a place like that, it's actually a really honest place to start. And it means we can achieve great results very quickly. Because what is helping you to feel safer, avoiding the camera, is actually one of the easiest things to recognize as a limiting belief. Quite often in life, what we think is keeping us safe is actually just holding us back. The risk and the threat that is perceived is quite often our own internal protective mechanism just trying to keep us safe. Call it our subconscious. There's so many different names, and as I have these conversations with people, I see an incredible pattern that our bodies are just trying to keep us safe. Oh, we have the excuse of we don't have the time to do it. Oh, really? Let me show you how you can get it done in 30 seconds. You don't have 30 seconds to communicate with 14,000 staff members across the world. As you as a leader travel to conferences, as you engage with stakeholders, as you visit significant sites that are relevant to your industry, all the effort you're going to travel from A to B, if you just communicate, even if it's only internally, forget social media for a minute. Even if you only communicate internally with your stakeholders, with your staff members, with your the investors, if you only communicate directly with them, you're having an extraordinary, what a disproportional impact. A 30-second video that is seen by so many significant stakeholders that shows you doing what everyone thought you would be doing. Some people may not have known that you were going to be in Bali standing on the beach. But if you actually turn up there and people get to see you, well, they're going to be more intrigued about the work that you're doing. And this is where you want to just not create, a whole lot of content for no purpose. When we think about the real purpose behind the content we're wanting to share, the precise call to action, you might say, it brings real clarity and an ease to the work that you can do yourself just with your smartphone. When you know why you're making the content, who your audience is, and even just the logistics of what platform it's going to be shown on, it just makes the whole recording of interviews, capturing moments, doing pieces to camera so much easier. Extraordinarily simple. It's a storyteller mindset. And the transition that I like to help people to make, executives to make, particularly those who've had some level of media training, I often find that people, even when they're quite good at doing media, and by good I mean controlling a situation, avoiding questions, steering a narrative, right? But do they win the hearts and minds of people? Not really. They never did. You might look like a clever, tricky person who can command a situation and manipulate it, control it. But you don't really actually control the situation. People's alert systems have never been more highly tuned to that kind of approach. I think of it as I lump it all together in this whole philosophy of media training that people have clung to for a very long time. Because on one level, it makes sense. If you can control your heart rate, your breathing, and your posture, if you can control what's happening in your mind and how you respond to the questions that are being put to you, if you can control that, then, that is, it makes sense. That is a safer way to play it. Just shaking the sand out of my laptop bag here. It is a much safer way to play it. And if you can avoid the issue altogether, well, so much better. But do you know what? Like a politician or a business leader who's accused of something running down the street is never a good look for anybody, really. I've spent years doing that myself in those contexts, particularly outside a courtroom where somebody has a question to answer or there's interest in their story. But when there's an interest in their story and they decide not to speak into it, if you're avoiding the issue or there's a perception that you're avoiding an issue, it's not a great result for anybody. And so, look, that is a conversation that we can have. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask me about that. I spent decades working as a nightly news reporter, and I would often think, what is the real value of the story I'm working on here? But when you, as an executive, as a leader, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, have a story that you want to share, if you just hide behind media training, you'll more often than not spend more money, watch this content that's created take much longer to prepare. And because it's taken longer to prepare, it's written by somebody else. It's not in your voice. It's not your story. It's not your authentic script. It means that the ultimate cost of the production, the value of it, and the timeliness of it all decreases. the cost of it increases because you've brought in external TV crews, or you've used internal ones, but still it's those videographers, they're being paid wages to do the work that they're doing. They could be doing something else. Instead, they're meeting with you, they're traveling with you, they're meeting with you to film you doing this piece to camera. You could so much more easily do it yourself on your smartphone. If you can get comfortable doing that, and I can show you how to, if you can really see the value of the story around you, you don't need to go down that path. And I know a lot of organisations have professionals there to help them, but goodness, getting time with those people is next to impossible. And there is only so many resources that people have. Organisations don't have unlimited budgets for comms, and so it ends up meaning that people just give up. Oh, well, let's just wait until we can get the camera crew. But you know what, that could be a couple of weeks away, and the message that you're wanting to share today, you might not be able to get it out. And when you do finally get that booking with the crew in a couple of weeks' time, you'll be thinking this video, it's going to take 2 weeks to get it edited and put together. And so I better make it relevant for 2 weeks' time from now, not our message today. So overall, that means cost has gone up. Time to produce is huge. And the shelf life of the content that's created, the timeliness of that message goes down in terms of quality. It is stale by the time, arguably, that it's ready. And it's more vanilla in its impact. You're no longer just talking about, here I am on a Tuesday morning in Bali. For those of you in New York, I know it's Monday night, coming up to 8:25 on Monday night. Hope you've had a great day, New York. Everyone on the East Coast there. Wonderful to be here with you from Bali. Jimbaran Bay is where I am. Very excited to be having this live conversation with you. If you've just dialed in, Evan Batten is my name, as you've probably seen from the live event. And you can find me on YouTube as the Unretired Reporter, which is where I post my own stories now. Because for the last 3 years, I've been out of mainstream media, a career that I loved for 30 years. Started as a sound recordist, ended up presenting the news, presenting documentaries, producing long-form current affairs programs. Most of the time, though, I was a crime reporter for the nightly news bulletins for the 3 commercial networks in Australia, Channel 9, 10 and 7. And for the last 3 years, I've been coaching business leaders, C-suite executives all over the world to be more authentic in the way that they show up and share their story. And all this, the storyteller mindset is built around the capability that we all now have with our smartphones and what a broadcast capability they are. What I typically find is leaders today believe that their story isn't worth sharing, and they make 3 mistakes when they believe their story is not worth sharing, that who they are is not of any real value. It's just the work that speaks for itself. That's the real focal point. Look at the profit that we achieved for this quarter. Look at the business that we just sold. Look at the X number of employees that we've either sacked or brought on. This is how we're now using AI in this part of the business. This is what money it's saving us. Our work speaks for itself. No, it doesn't. Let go of that belief. You, as a human, are a storyteller. The story is in you. I've seen this my whole life. Most of us don't believe our story is worth sharing. Most executives believe their work speaks for itself. Friends, between now and the day you die, and this is the real premise, this is why you should no longer fake it till you make it. Be your authentic self, because you will achieve so much more. You will still do the same amount of projects. The work that you do, the categories that you're able to achieve results in will still be the same. But if you tell the story as you go, you'll achieve more across the whole board, and you'll build out a legacy. Your story includes things like the before and after story, the testimonial from clients, a day in the life of you. And whenever I say a day in the life, I always stop and think, oh my goodness, how do you measure success is a massive thing that we should discuss here. But a day in the life, because do you know what? I often see people going, oh, all right, okay, this is the way the argument goes in the newsroom. Oh, okay, in the offices, the executives, veterans of their industry. They're finally persuaded by the marketing team that you should start doing TikTok. Oh, gosh, do I have to do it? Okay, I'll show that I'm young and hip and cool and I can do what the cool kids are doing these days. Okay, and so they start doing videos, and typically there's the trend that you might have seen, that behind the scenes or a day in the life trend. Now, I'm not advocating for this at all, because I think when you look at the strategy behind the content you make, if you're compromising your reputation or who you really are to do a trend, well, how are you measuring the success of the video really matters. Are you just looking at the vanity metrics and going, well, look how many views we had. Oh, this number of people liked that video and hardly anyone liked that one. Do you know some of the most high quality, important content that I put out there isn't the one that achieves the most number of comments, likes, reshares, saves, goodness, all of these things that the various social media platforms allow us to analyze, the vanity metrics. And if we just relied on that alone to determine whether our content is worthwhile, whether our story has hit the message, we'd be doing ourselves a massive disservice. It's, have you been able to speak clearly to the people that you're wanting to address? Have you made a strong, authentic connection with them? Have you shown up as yourself, not as that corporate robot, feeling like you don't like how you look and sound because you look and sound a bit wooden, preferring to stay in the out of the spotlight and letting other people get all the attention is sort of what flows on from that belief that our story is not worth sharing. If you're showing up in that kind of corporate space of the only way I can do this is to fake it until I make it, to put on this particular voice, to breathe in this artificial way that just helps me to hold my shoulders a certain way and feet steady or feet apart or knees slightly relaxed or all of this. It doesn't help you. Media training for decades has been focused on performance, with the belief that if you get the performance right, you'll look and sound confident enough, you'll control the narrative enough that that's how you have a win. But friends, more and more with social media, giving any number of people, democratizing the ability that we have to interrogate, to share our opinion, to share our story, to really look closely at how other people are showing up. It is very hard to hide. And also it's unnecessary to. We just don't need to. You have ample opportunity to show up and share your story. You don't need to hide behind one video news release that was that put out last week. When things change and things are updated, to show up consistently is one of the most powerful ways to build trust at scale. Regularly showing up. And I would encourage you to think about all of the social media platforms and the value of showing up publicly like that. And for C-suite leaders in executive spaces that are heavily regulated, quite often in the financial or legal space, yes, you've got to be careful about what you say, but your personal brand is an extraordinary asset that most people just stay quiet on because it feels ambiguous in terms of the value of expressing a personal brand and the risk around it. So there are some areas to navigate here, seeing the benefit and navigating the risk. Okay, will you actually amplify your impact if you do those things? Yeah. What if technically you're shown a way to do it in a way that means you can do it when you're time poor? So you don't have to set aside 2 hours next Monday to do a video. What a relief. You don't have to do that anymore. They're not going to book out a meeting room for half a day, bring in a TV crew, tens of thousands of dollars. Auto cue, sound recorders, camera operator, lights, stressful, highly polished environment, producing a bit of video that will look so heavily produced that people will watch it and they'll kind of watch it with different eyes, compared to if it was just you recording a short video message and sending it as and when the message needs to be shared, when it's relevant, when you want to get that message across. Imagine if you just focused on creating the content at that point. Much nicer way to go, more authentic, saves a lot of money, reduces the time to publish. Isn't that great? You're not waiting till the end of next week, hopefully, before you see version 1 and ask them to do a second edit. You don't like the music in it. Goodness, do you know what? We spend so much effort thinking about graphics and music to introduce a video. That's where a lot of the expense is really hidden. And for what real purpose? It's just a little bit of a distraction from the main message. And quite often people decide that they want to bring, a production company in to think about those sorts of things because it seems like a good idea. But often it's buried underneath that is the belief that, if I show up myself as the storyteller, it's not enough. The way I sound it's not right. I don't look right. If there's enough razzle dazzle around me, graphics, Evan Batten's name comes up on a beautiful blue and silver strap at the bottom, some graphics. And there's some lovely music in the background. So even though Evan doesn't like the sound of his voice, there's some music there to hide Evan's voice so that when Evan watches it back later, well, he won't hate it as much because he kind of likes the music. Friends, all of these things are a distraction, right? They don't actually amplify the connection, the impact, the delivery. All it does is soothe people who are trying to be soothed in a way that's a bit of a blunt instrument. It's a Band-Aid that just doesn't achieve anything for you. It's the worst kind of Band-Aid fix. It looks like it's doing something, but it achieves nothing. The real root problem here is for people that we don't feel comfortable on video. Because when we watch our videos back, we're not being our authentic self and we don't like how we look and sound. Sometimes people decide to avoid the camera as a result of that. They decide to let other people tell the story, get all the attention, get promoted ahead of them, get recruited to the competitor because they've got a personal brand, a presence. They show up regularly, consistently. The investors decide not to go with your project, but to go with somebody else. The tender goes to another organisation because we like this about them. Friends, when you and all of the people in your organisation show up consistently as storytellers to share with everybody what it is that you do, what you're on about, that's the basis of helping people to get to know you, like you, and trust you. And not just you, but everyone in your organisation. Why not take those people with deep technical expertise who've been hiding away from the camera like you have all this time? I mean, you've been hiding away from it until the CMO really starts screaming at you that you as the leader need to set an example and say you have to do this. And you've delayed it as long as you can. And okay, now we're going to do it. And you watch the video back afterwards and they say, you're fantastic. The way you were standing there, it was just great. It was strong, good, strong presence. It was convincing. And you start to wonder, are they just telling me what I want to hear? I look back at it and I go, I'm never watching this video. I don't want my family seeing this. This is not me. And yeah, it's kind of like people hear what you've said. You might even get some grabs, airtime on the news. But do you like how you look and sound? Are you happy with it? I spent years as a news reporter struggling to find my authentic voice. I know what it is to feel like you don't like how you look and sound on video. I get it. It can be a really awful experience when you just checking there, having a look at the link. Everything seems to be working well. Thank you so much for your time and turning up for a bit of a chat this morning about your personal brand. But when we believe that our story's not worth sharing, when we decide to stay quiet, when we're dragged to it kicking and screaming, and we focus on this artificial way of showing up, call it media training for shorthand, it just means that we are a shell of our actual selves. We're not doing ourselves justice. If there are legal and marketing professionals who feel more comfortable at this point because they can control the message and how you sound a bit more in their mind, let's just reevaluate this. What if you're able to show up as a strong, confident human and even in a regulated environment where you know what you can and can't say, to just walk and chew gum at the same time? Hey, I can share my story and not say the wrong thing. I can engage with other people, whether they're journalists or members of the public, and I can show up in a very human moment and just be myself. I'd much prefer to stand on stage and read off an auto cue, take no questions and leave the annual general meeting. Why? Why can't you open it up for questions? Why is it that you would rather sit there like a stuffed corporate puppet, only saying these three things, no matter what the question? Here are your three talking points. Here's your one talking point. This is all you're allowed to say. Do you like strawberry or chocolate? Well, the message I'd like to get across today is to talk about the results from our... People want to know who you are. To our CMO friends or our legal friends who are so anxious in this space that we don't expose ourselves unnecessarily to risk. Do you know how much easier it is to just be human, to be aware of look, like your executives, have a little confidence in them. Have a little confidence that they can articulate this story well enough and that they can hear a question that might be going off in a wrong direction, and that they can steer it back in a very adept way, if it needs to be that. We see I'm thinking right now, the number of times I heard senior police officers, there are journalists there wanting to ask a question to get to the nub of an issue, and the reality is the investigation is only a few hours old. And there's an honesty to a senior detective, and I find it refreshing when somebody's not afraid to say what they don't know. Because who can really know who done it? Friends, the investigation's not even 24 hours old. We've decided to call this press conference today to answer your questions because we know that there's public interest in the matter that's being broadcast appropriately as it should. We're very sorry to hear. Our hearts are broken too when we look at what has happened here. It might have been a murder, it might have been some other serious crime. We take this very seriously, and that's why we're addressing the media today. But friends, there are a number of things already happening in the investigation that it wouldn't be appropriate for us to speak about, because by speaking about them, we may well jeopardise the integrity of where this is going. Having said that, please don't report that we feel like you think we're close to cracking the case. This is less than 24 hours old. We are throwing an incredible amount of resources at gathering information at this point in time. And it is important that you allow our police on the ground to get on and do the work that they need to do, because we're going to get the result that we're all looking for. We're going to find that missing child so much sooner. We're here today to speak about missing little boy, little girl, X. Oh, are there any suspects? Do you know anyone who might have taken it? This is where people understand you can control a narrative, but still be human in the way that you show up. But when we so focus on performative techniques that are all about dismissing certain things just because we want you to... Do you know what that does in your psyche? If you are being asked to show up in this context and your focus is all on how you breathe, how you speak, your body language, your posture, all of these things, if that's where your focus is, that's not helping you. That is creating an unhealthy focus on the performance and less authenticity. It's also making you overthink it to such a level that you're feeling so much stress around it unnecessarily. And when you just bring a more human approach to how you show up on video, my goodness, what a change that makes. What opportunities that opens up for you.